Here begins the third and final episode of my Pencast conversation with Nanette van Schelven, Director General of the Customs Administration of the Netherlands. Now, you mentioned stakeholders, and we've already talked about your collaboration with academia. What is your collaboration like with the private sector, with traders, with private companies?
That's also something when I came into office at Customs, which I found rather unique. You see in the whole of the government that basically we want to work together with all stakeholders in society, but it's very difficult. And you tend as a civil servant to withdraw yourself to the ministry you work or the agency you work, and you work very hard and you think that you are doing the right thing, but you kind of forget to ask the people or the companies you work for. I think in customs world, and especially in Dutch customs, that's unique compared to other parts of the government, that we have a strong collaboration with the private sector. We have that on an institutionalized basis. We have a 3 moments a year we see each other, and I'm the head of that meeting. So I have everybody in my network, so to speak, but it's not only me, but underneath that there are lots of working groups on IT, on innovation, on legislation, on current affairs, etc., etc. We have working groups where members of companies, of stakeholders work together with my customs officers. And together we work on all kinds of things. And there's one thing that we always say, we don't want to surprise each other. So if we are working on something, they need to know, and the other way around also. And that's on the level of the customs as a whole, Dutch customs. But what I also see is that in certain areas we also work closely together. For instance, the Port of Rotterdam. You have the literal translation is you have a harbor table. There is a table where everybody who is of any importance in that port sits on that table, and every issue is dealt with there. So because you need each other. If we want to innovate, like what I said, the odor extracting device, you want to put that innovation into a logistical chain. You want to test it. You need the people from cargo. You need the people from the terminals to really think with you. And so that's basically what we do. So working together with the private sector is something that's also for Dutch considerations rather unique. And I think that's a really big asset of customs. And I think we should do that more also in other European countries. Sometimes I get colleagues from other European customs organizations, and I tell them about how often I meet my colleagues in the private sector, and they look at me and say, okay, and does that work? And I say, yes, it works. It really works. If you work at Schiphol, you need to know the director of cargo, of KLM, of Schiphol, etc., because those are the people you work for. We never should forget that basically in the end, we are there to ensure a level playing field. We are there to ensure that companies who work and comply by the rules should have an advantage. We are there to make sure that their business is not polluted by businesses who don't work so well. So we have an obligation to society.
That's fascinating. And that's, quite often in other customs administrations, there's more of an adversarial relationship with the private sector. Like you don't want to get too close because you're afraid that there will be some accusation of working too closely, right?
Yes.
But in fact, it's the other way. It's you're working for them. They're, in a sense, your clients, if you will. And if you have a positive relationship, then it's much more productive. Yeah.
Yes, and you have, and that's also something that's, of course, we feel that tension in our organization. On the one hand, you want to cooperate with private organizations. On the other hand, it shouldn't influence your judgment. And it shouldn't influence whether or not you will have to penalize them for whatever. So you have to talk about that, not only in your own organization, but also with the companies.
Right.
And you would be surprised in how often companies say, we understand that. And we wouldn't want it any other way. Of course, you have a different role than you're not a colleague of ours. You are the person who can stop our goods at the border. And we expect that of you. But that doesn't mean that you can't collaborate with us. You can't work with us together. We can help, for instance, with data. If you see how many data we have as Dutch Customs, it's partly because companies are happy to share it with us because they say you can make a better judgment. And they know we as Dutch Customs will make sure we are working wisely with that data.
What do you perceive to be the key challenges for the next generation of customs officers in Dutch Customs and more broadly throughout the world?
It's great that you asked me this question now. We are working on a project that is called How Will the Customs World Look Like in 2035? And we did we analyzed everything, like how will the labor market be? What will be the effect of the Green Deal? What will be the effect of climate changes?
Wow.
What will be the effect of innovations, IT, etc., etc.? And well, you would be surprised that if you are thinking of 2035, you have in this day and age to make the right decisions. And it was a very good thing that we are working on it because we saw we need that new legislation to give us more room to work on another level than what we are doing now, from transaction-based to system-based approach, basically. The new customs code will give us that. What we think is customs will always be something that is done by human beings. And our customs officers should be the one we salute to. The customs officers should be the ones that should be really helped by every IT system that you can think of. If the customs officer goes into the field, it should have impact. So we are too much at this moment sending people away to do checks, and they result in nothing. I think data can prevent that. Data will help us to make sure that when a customs officer does his work, the impact is as high as possible. Because data can do a lot, but in the end, there has to be a certain kind of human decision. Of course, most of the things can go through our data systems and can be released without any intervention because we have the right data and we know that we can rely on it. That's also something we don't have at the moment. We have a lot of data. I think we have too much data. But do we have the right data? That's something we're working on. Can we trust the data? We have the source data. And it will not be tampered with. It will not be something that is stored in a mailbox or an Excel or whatever. It will be the source data. So data is key, but don't forget the human aspect of the work. What we're seeing now is that it will be difficult to get more people in the organization. And with the flow of goods, we can make the rest of the Netherlands a customs officer to check all the 4 million declaration. And still, we will be running short of staff. So that's not the solution. But our solution is the right data. We have to rely on the data. Algorithms, of course. I think the X-ray machine I started with to put that in the logistical chain is brilliant. But let the machine look at the images instead of persons. Now I have 2 persons who have to look at one image because I want to make sure there's no tampering with it. If the machine can do it, great. And then at the end, the intervention is there of the customs officer. I think also the work of the customs will change. We need the officers in the field. But in the end of the day, I need a lot of IT staff. And that's what I'm seeing already at the moment happening. We are attracting a lot of data science. People want to work with the state-of-art stuff. And we are in that transition now. And it already started. It's not something that will happen. It's already happening. So make sure that you're making the right decisions. And we made a bold decision this year. We said if we get new tasks, we don't want any people. We want better data. So in the end, this is the staff we have, but we want to make the data do the job for us. And so we're investing in a lot of new people from in the IT staff, and that will lead to less people in the field. And that's, I think, the turnaround that we are making at the moment.
I see. Well, I can see why you have a lot of applicants for your new jobs, because it's inspiring to speak with you, and it's exciting to hear your vision, not only what's happening today in the field, but what's going to be, what customs is going to be like in 2035. So, Nanette van Schelven, thank you so much for giving us your insider perspective on how customs works in Netherlands and across the world, and where customs is going in the future.
Thank you, and you're welcome. And keep up the good work. I'm excited to listen to your podcast.
This concludes the third and final episode of my Pencast conversation with Nanette van Schelven, Director General of the Customs Administration of the Netherlands. Tune in soon for another conversation with customs innovators, leaders, and trendsetters. Thank you.